The small insular country of 1,800 square kilometers, located in the middle of the Indian Ocean, is a real tropical paradise. The capital of Mauritius is Port Louis. Commercial and civil services are both concentrated here. This is also the location of the biggest market and only sea harbor of the country. The waterfront seaside commercial and cultural center is built near the harbor on the seaside with restaurants, coffee bars, snack bars, cinemas, and a casino. The Caudon waterfront building is on the other side of the harbor, which also has the copy of a lighthouse built inside. In front of it is an 18th century windmill and a playground with a huge sailboat. Otherwise, the Caudon is a shopping center just like the waterfront, with restaurants and shops, but also with hotel and casino. The central market is primarily a food market. 68% of the island inhabitants are Indian, 27% are Creole, and the rest are Chinese, French, or of other nationalities. Asia, Africa, and Europe are mixed in the customs, religion, mentality, and culture of the locals, as well as in the gastronomy. Excellent weather and soil are favorable for vegetable and fruit cultivation. The sea supports their gastronomic specialties with fish, crabs, and other seafood. On the menu, Indian curry dishes and spicy Creole, Chinese, and French specialties are all listed together. The freshly picked fruits have quite a different taste than those delivered to Europe after a long trip. The neighborhood of the central market is the empire of the wandering sellers. From straw hats to conga drums, they sell everything. Boxes made of tropical wood and woven goods are especially nice. Anyone looking for a present can take tea, coffee, rum, or spices home. Mauritius is known for its good quality textile and silk products, which have quite reasonable prices. Indian shoes are surprisingly cheap, and among the huge amount of Far Eastern goods, we can also run across some inexpensive original souvenirs. Souvenirs, handcrafted items, books, and maps can be found in the shopping centers, but expensive boutiques, outlet clothes shops, and different services are also to be found here. The accessories needed for photography and video making can be attained here too. The dodo bird, which is the symbol of the island, can be bought in any imaginable form. There are wood carvings and ceramic statues of it, but it can also be found in jade or steatite. Its figure adorns t-shirts and bags as well. The model ships are made by hand, with careful work and are reduced copies of existing ships. We can find both the Saint Geran and the Cutty Sark, the Discovery or the Santa Maria. On request, they arrange for flight-safe packaging of the fragile models in the shop. The oldest horse race track of the world is on Mauritius, in the outskirts of Port Louis. In the winter months, altogether 23 races are held here. Mauritius was the fourth country in the world which printed stamps. In 1847, the ruler held a large-scale ball. Stamps were stuck to the invitations in large numbers so that they were soon out of stock. The quickly ordered reprints were mistakenly marked with a post office notice instead of post paid. The wrong prints became the object of philatelists' collecting passion 2 decades later. Specialist books mention 14 such stamps, Only 4 are known as being on the island. One of these is exhibited in the Blue Penny Museum in Port Louis. We find the Domaine Les Payes estate near the capital, which allows a view of life in the city from 300 years ago. The traditional Sega dance is also a part of this. Originally, it was a rhythmic dance of the slaves, which they did on the seaside next to campfires. Sugar production is still the basis of the economy of Mauritius. The factory originates from the time when slaves were working on the plantations and harvested the sugarcane by hand. We can follow the process how the sweet fluid is pressed from the sugarcane in an old mill. A bull pulls the structure which originates from the time before the invention of the steam engine. Sugar is made by cooking and crystallizing the pressed fluid, and unrefined, it's called brown sugar. If further refined, it's white granulated sugar that is spread all over the world. On Mauritius, also loaf sugar is made based on an old recipe, while rum is made of treacle. In the spice garden, we can see Indian curry making. The base of the spice mixture is curcuma or saffron, coriander, pepper, caraway seed, nutmeg, and cardamom seed. Masala, as the Hindus call it, can be prepared according to various recipes. The spices are ground with a stone cylinder so the volatile oils are freed and then mixed in a certain proportion. For the hot version, chili pepper is added abundantly. The chef of an elegant restaurant located in the colonial-styled house also shows how to make an appetizing meat dish by using the spice mixture. First, we have to prepare the basic ingredients. We cut the turkey breast into strips. Saute the meat in oil, add onion, garlic, and chili pepper. Add plenty of curry powder. On Mauritius, they dilute it with coconut milk, which we can obtain in the Asian shops, but cream can also be used instead. The best style trimmings for curried turkey is cooked rice, which here is often flavored with diced onion and peppers. The area can be explored on foot, by small train, or hansom cab. Pony riding is perfect for children, and adults might enjoy a jeep safari. Then we can have a rest in one of the 3 restaurants or poolside. A huge sugarcane plantation belongs to the estate, where it's harvested each year and delivered to a modern factory for processing. Only an insignificant amount of the sugarcane remains here, just to use for illustrating the techniques of past times. The new attraction of the island, the Adventure of Sugar exhibition, was opened in 2002. Professionals, tourist groups, and students are also welcomed in the former factory building of 5,000 square meters. While in the Domaine Le Paille, sugar was produced by factory methods, here we can already encounter high-performance electric machines and some steam engines which are rare relics. The contemporary graphics not only illustrate the processing of sugarcane, but also take us back to the age of slavery. We can follow the whole process of production on the charts. Next to the original machines, operational models help orientation. Even a superannuated carrier ship is exhibited. Behind it is the picture of Port Louis Harbor as it looked at the turn of the century. In those days, sugar was sold in pharmacies. 15 kinds were known. In the sugar mill, the liquid was pressed out of the sugar cane. The pressed stems were used as fuel. By adding water, they adjusted the sugar content of the syrup, which was then filtered and cleaned. Vacuuming was followed by crystallizing. Then, during the spin drying, the sugar and treacle were separated. Treacle is a byproduct of the production which plays the main role in rum production. The fermentation of treacle is followed by ripening, filtering, and bottling. Rum is made in every sugar-producing country of the world, and these differ from each other in color, taste, and aroma, all keeping the characteristics of their respective country. Of course, there's also a possibility for rum tasting, and in the boutique, we can buy different kinds of sugar and rum. To the north of the capital, in the interior of the island, is the Pamplemousse Botanical Garden. In front of its main gate, a Christian church has been built, which professes how multifaceted culture and religion are here. On Mauritius, we can find both Catholic and Protestant churches, as well as Muslim mosques, Chinese pagodas, and Buddhist shrines. We can imagine how many different religious and secular celebrations are held here. The Christian New Year is soon followed by the Chinese one. The Tamils' most colorful holiday is Kavadi in February. In March, 300,000 Hindu go on a pilgrimage to Saint Lake. In April, the Creoles celebrate the holiday of Ugadi, while Christians celebrate Easter. In October, Ramagad and the Ganges holidays are Hindu holidays, and in November, the Muslims celebrate Ramadan. At the 1862 London World's Fair, Prince Albert awarded the main prize for the wrought iron gate of the park's main entrance. The history of the 24-hectare park dates back to as far as 1768. The Mont Plaisir residence, which is still standing in the park, came under the ruling of Pierre Poivre in those times. The French explorer's collection, consisting of rare tropical plants, soon became known worldwide. The garden was named after a type of grapefruit, which the Tamils called bambomas. There are 80 kinds of palm trees here alone, but we can find ebony, teak, and mahogany trees, ferns, bamboos, monkey bread trees, and mangrove as well. The orchids and flamingo flowers are especially colorful. Several kinds of fruit trees have been planted, which play an important role in local gastronomy, together with vegetables and spice plants. Several heads of state and prime ministers planted trees while visiting here. The trees indicated by small green signs are in front of the colonial-style building Château de Montplaisir, where official receptions are held. A statue of its former owner and founder, Pierre Poivre, stands nearby on the shore of a small lake. Two other monuments are also worth mentioning. The names of those who did a lot for the flora and fauna of the island are chiseled on a white marble obelisk. We find Gerald Durrell's name here as well. The other important monument is a statue of the famous French writer Jacques-Henri Bernardin de Saint-Pierre. his romantic love story served in shaping the reputation of the tiny island. Published in 1788, the novel has been translated into all major languages, and it's always cited as the Romeo and Juliet story of the 18th century. Paul and Virginie are brother and sister, whom their mother raised alone. To her dismay, she observed that their relation was slowly turning into love. In order to separate them, she sent her daughter to a French boarding school. In her desperation, Virginie sailed with the Saint-Géran sailboat, which went around at Cape Malheureux. Paul, who saw all this, tried to save his love, but the virtuous girl didn't want to take off her clothes, which pulled her into the deep. Paul's heart was broken. Whether the story was true or not, we don't know. Supposedly, the only truth is that a sailboat of the same name suffered a tragedy in which 2 ladies drowned because they didn't want to take off their clothes. Others say that Virginie's real tomb stands here in the Pamplemousse Botanic Garden. Whichever version is true, it's certain that streets and hotels have been named after the characters of the tragic story. They have a monument in Port Louis, and countless is the number of those souvenirs featuring them. The novel is available in 30 languages in the bookshops of the capital. The malicious Mark Twain said, "This is the greatest and the only work that has ever been written about the island of Mauritius." The most spectacular part of the garden is the water lily pond, where circular leaves of unbelievable size, called Victoria Amazonica, float with white and pink flowers scattered between. We can also see some native species of animals, such as antelopes and giant turtles, which are everywhere. We can recall Mark Twain's classical record of his journey, the Following the Equator, in which he writes, "You gather the idea that Mauritius was created first, and then heaven, and that heaven was copied after Mauritius." According to legend, Baudelaire met the love of his life, the Creole lady, here in the park. Perhaps the strangest resident of the garden is the talipot palm, which lives for 50 years, flowers only once, then dies. The holiday center of the northern part of the island is the Grand Bay, located 20 kilometers from Port Louis. From the bay to the south, we find 16 hotels, and to the north, 7. All are hotel colonies, built right next to the seaside with their own beaches, and in their small houses, there are 4 to 6 fully equipped apartments. An aquarium has been established in the village of Trou de Biche, where 250 kinds of sea creatures live in 36 basins. The long Choisy Beach is the most untouched segment of the coast. Not long ago, Grand Bay, surrounded by emerald green lagoons, was a fishing village. Today, it has become the center of beach activities, water sports, and nightlife. It provides several services, including a post office, doctor's office, bank, pharmacy, and police station. Here is also the largest yacht harbor and diving center of the island. Besides several shops, restaurants, and boutiques, we can find a diving school and a sports store as well. All kinds of water sports are available, such as water skiing, windsurfing, water bicycling, and touring the area by sailboat or motorboat, or traveling to the nearby small islands by helicopter. We can admire the underwater world from real submarines. The small electromotor Finnish boats with 10 passengers dive 35 meters deep. The submarines equipped with a system providing double oxygen are unique in the whole Indian Ocean, and don't compare to the ones known from the Red Sea, which really don't dive, just have a glass-walled cabin under the body of the ship. Of course, we can find glass-bottom ships and boats on Mauritius too. We can best observe the brilliant fauna of the coral reefs from these, but of course, who has the possibility should at least try snorkel diving. The greatest advantage of the island is that coral reefs border it on 3 sides, more than 150 kilometers long. In the shallow-watered, protected bays and lagoons, we can bathe as safely as in a swimming pool. Only the southern coast is an exception, where heavy currents and sharks make swimming dangerous. On the north, besides Grande Bay, the beaches of Peribere, Montchaussy, and Trou-aux-Biches are the best. On the west, Flickenflac, Tamarine, and Le Morne, and on the east, Bellemare and Blue Bay. Lying on snow-white sand under the shade of cocoa palms that bend over the sea, this is a real tropical dream. Cap Malheureux, literally the Cape of Misfortune, is the most northern part of the island. It got its name after the memorable disaster of the Saint-Géran. Today, there are such exclusive hotels that those finding themselves here can say they are rather fortunate instead of unfortunate. All four-star hotels have their own seaside beach, which are almost exclusively sandy, but often big pieces of rocks make the coasts even more romantic. Besides swimming, the beach, and adventure pools, great emphasis is placed on the restaurants. In addition to continental restaurants, we always find one that offers local specialties. The plumage of the Mauritius flying cardinal contains all the colors of the rainbow. Its head is jasmine red, its bill is black, its necktie is golden. The wings are gray, the bottom of its abdomen is snow white, its legs are magenta. The Catholic Church standing on the seacoast can often be seen in pictures and paintings of the island. The intimate bay, with the flaming red and orange-colored bougainvilleas, provides picturesque surroundings for the small chapel. The colorful Hindu church is less quiet and cozy. This is the center of community life with the hubbub that belongs to it. Indians, who make up the majority of the inhabitants of Mauritius, practice Hinduism, which is not such a uniform religion as Christianity or Islam. For outsiders, the countless representations of gods, half-gods, and their incarnations are confusing. The highest existing is Brahma, but his characteristics are distributed among other gods in order to make worship simpler. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the preserver, and Shiva is the destroyer. Each of the three main gods was endowed with different characteristics, names, and figures. Some geologists are of the opinion that 8 million years ago, Mauritius was united with the Seychelles Islands and Reunion until an earthquake and seaquake, after a volcano eruption, split them. A long time had to pass until foreign sailors landed on the island. The Arabs called the land Dina Robin, but did not want possession of it, only landing here for water and fresh food, as did the Portuguese. They named it Swan Island. In 1512, British sailors also discovered the land of paradise, but a further 86 years passed until the Dutch gained possession of it, and the South Africans called it Mauritius in honor of the governor Maurits von Nassau. The first settlers dealt with sugarcane cultivation, but the result of their efforts was only the devastation of the ebony trees, the destruction of the dodo bird, and the propagation of the Javanese deer, pigs, and stray dogs they had brought along. The Dutch left the island in 1710, and 5 years later, the French arrived. Louis XV gave the island to the French East Indian Company, who christened it Île-de-France. The governor, Mahé de la Bourdonnais, put forth a decree to establish 2 cities. Construction was begun on Port Louis in the northwest and named after himself, Mahébourg in the southeast. After the bankruptcy of the French East Indian Company, the king repurchased the island. In the early 1800s, the leadership of the island, observing the British activities at sea, requested military help from the mother country. In spite of the activity of the military governor sent by Napoleon's regime, the English landed in 1810 at Cap Merveilleux and occupied the island. The English let the French settlers keep their lands and culture. Although English became the official language, even today, most people on the island speak French. The English, of course, repealed the name Île-de-France and rechristened the island Mauritius. They terminated slavery, and parallel to their own industrial revolution at home, they also modernized the island. Later, they introduced electricity and the telephone. The first automobiles and trains also arrived. The airport of the island was built for the Royal Air Force during the Second World War and began to be used for the transport of civilians in 1947. Mauritius gained its independence in 1968. Since then, the English governor has been acting as the president of the republic. Sir Sevu Sagar Ramgoolam was the first prime minister, and he is also called the nation's father. The international airport bears his name. Among the hills and plateaus of the western side of the island, we find several natural reserves. Jeep safaris departing from the Kasala Bird Park are similar to traveling on Africa's steppes to observe wild animals. However, here, large game can't be found, mainly deer and antelopes. There are warthogs, squirrels, monkeys, but especially the bird life is rich. The land is amazing. Abundant tropical rainfall has shaped the land of volcanic origin. Green hills with casuarina trees and acacia woods, and behind the distant mountains, the Indian Ocean appears blue. We can have a view of the Tamarind Beach, which is the favorite place of the local windsurfers. The Jeep easily climbs higher on the winding dirt road. Resting places, rain huts, and lookouts are built on the highest point of the Renpart mountainside. The two larger can be found above Alexandra Falls and at the edge of the Plain Champagne. Unbelievably colorful birds sing in the trees. The national park is some 20 kilometers in length, extending as far as the Black River, and got its name also from here, Black River National Park, Valriche. It's worth knowing that the largest-scaled, most adventurous field rally of the world, the Camel Trophy, is held here on Mauritius. For Jeep tours, similar Land Rovers are used as those participating in the race. In Valriche, we can choose among a 3-hour Jeep tour, a 2-hour trekking tour, or a 2-hour mountain bike tour. This area of 6,574 hectares was first declared a nature reserve on the island in 1994. 150 plants and 19 bird species live here. The most interesting part of the land is the picturesque canyon itself, which is 600 meters deep. There are paths leading to the plateau from all the 4 cardinal points. Those making a walking tour can start from La Petrine Visitor Center, where they can get a map and advice. Game conservancy is practiced on the territory, but guest hunters are not welcome. The Kasala Bird Park is a bird reserve with a territory of 8 hectares extending between the Flick and Flack and Tamarind beaches. In earlier times, there was hardly a native animal since almost all species were brought by the settlers. At the same time, though, the bird life was much richer than elsewhere. Kasala Park, of course, breeds, protects, and shows not only native birds, but also those 142 species native to Africa and on the islands of the Indian Ocean, of which there are 2,500 individual birds living here. The most interesting among the birds are perhaps the blue-crowned pigeon, the bleeding heart pigeon, and of course the famous Mauritius pink pigeon. There are peacocks, ostriches, parrots, cockatoos, and flamingos, but songbirds, birds of prey, and aquatic birds are also represented. During our walk, we find playgrounds, fish ponds, souvenir shops, and snack bars, as those who run the park try to make the time spent here as pleasant as possible. They've also built a farm and a petting zoo. However, there are some residents who can't be caressed. These are the tigers that were already born in captivity. On the southwestern corner of the island, in the shade of the 828-meter-high Piton Cliff, 6 hotel complexes have been built. In his travelogue entitled Blue Mauritius, Tivadar Farkashazi writes, "The hotel is a miracle in itself. The small island that has recently become independent soon realized that nobody would travel 15,000 kilometers to rent a cheap hole. So the coast actually consists of 50 connected luxury hotels, and nature has brought a wonderful climate, blue sky, light breeze, crystal clear warm water into the business." Another well-known humorist, Mark Twain, had this opinion more than a century ago. "Huge fields of waving sugarcane, beautiful fresh colors to delight the eye, anywhere and everywhere the jumbled luxuriance of tropical flora with different shades of bright green, thick wild brushwood from which graceful palms emerge with their broken leaves, then dense shaded forests with cheerfully babbling clear streams which suddenly appear and later disappear, playing a kind of hide-and-seek with people. Then there are many small mountains, some strange, picturesque cliff groups similar to toys, a nice small pocket Matterhorn, and here and there we can see the white foaming edge of the sea." For centuries, travelers have called Mauritius the Garden of Eden, ancestral dream, paradise on earth, shining star of the Indian Ocean, and the list goes on and on. In its strange flag consisting of 4 horizontal stripes, red is the color of freedom, blue is the ocean, yellow is the sun, and green is the color of sugarcane. The small island of 1,200,000 inhabitants is closest to Africa, but even that is 2,000 kilometers away, while the distance to the big neighbor Madagascar is 1,100 kilometers. Réunion, which is under French authority, is only 160 kilometers, so many people visit both islands, traveling from one to the other either by ship or plane. Though the small Rodriguez Island of 108 square kilometers is 3 times as far away, it belongs to Mauritius, constituting its 10th district. As Mauritius is located near the Tropic of Capricorn, it enjoys all the advantages of a subtropical climate. Here, the summer lasts from December to June. The temperature at this time is around 30 degrees Celsius, but the risk of heavier rains is larger. Between July and September, the temperature is an average of 24 degrees Celsius, and the rainfall only amounts to a quarter of the quantity of the summer rains. In the second half of winter, the temperature rises. On the 600-meter high central plateau, the weather is always a bit colder than on the coast. The monsoon doesn't touch the island. Cyclone season is January and February. However, we only have to count on them approximately every 15 years. The southwestern corner has 2 more natural beauties to offer. One is the Chamarel waterfall. The road curves upwards between the mountains after Petite Rivière Noire. we wind our way up to the waterfall which was created by the St. Denis River among sugarcane and coffee plantations that seem to be endless. The water falls from a height of 83 meters on the hillside fully grown by tropical plants. From the bottom of the waterfall, the river runs to the sea under the name River du Cap. Since the 1960s, one big attraction of the island has been the colored earth. Seven colors: red, brown, violet, green, blue, scarlet, and yellow can be differentiated here. The moving dunes change both their shapes and colors, so however often we visit here, we never get the same view. The colors are different at sunrise, at noon, in the blood-red glitter of the sunset, and at nightfall. Supposedly, the material of the dunes is a mixture of coral sand and volcanic dust which is colored so many ways by different ores and minerals. The colored fields of chamarel can be found on every postcard, calendar, and in every picture album of Mauritius. The souvenir shops offer several knickknacks, also small bottles filled with colored soil. Grand Bassin, located on the plateau, is the most famous lake of the island. In 1890, the Hindu priest Ihumun Gosanye had a vision. Built on this, he tried to convince the village people to go on a pilgrimage. When at 600 meters they reached the shining lake that was shaped in the crater of the extinct volcano, they said he recognized the presence of God. Since then, the lake has been a place of pilgrimage with lots of myths and legends connected to it. The most well-known religious folklore tells about the fairies called Apsaras. The Ramajana celebrates the immortal beauty of these celestial nymphs, and they appear not only in the folklore of India, but all over Southeastern Asia. Many old Indians say that they've seen these creatures dancing, singing, and playing on the shore of the lake. We can surely consider this as being an exaggerated religious trance. Many think that these fairies are able to influence people's lives. The women pray to them, hoping for a child or happiness in love. At the shrines near the lake, life-sized, rainbow-colored statues watch wisely, smiling at the nosy visitors arriving from afar. Life is busy on the shore of the Grand Bassin, especially in February, when the Mahashivaratri celebration is held. Richly decorated Hindus go on a pilgrimage to the sacred place to take the water of the lake home and pour it on their Shiva statue. The Holi, due 1 month later, is a cheerful and colorful festival full of abandon. At this time, the defeat of the demon king is celebrated, but the outward appearance reminds us more of a picnic. Tea from Mauritius belongs to the top category. It's grown on the territory of the Central Plateau. The most famous teas of the world originate from India and China, where cultivation and breeding of this plant were first done. As the majority of the inhabitants of Mauritius are Hindus and a smaller proportion is Chinese, we can understand why they treat the Bois Chéri tea plantation with such meticulous care. A road bordered by royal palms leads to the plantation situated in brilliant natural environs. The tea plants are placed in long snake-like rows which are terraced. Even today, the gathering of the leaves, the harvest, is done in the traditional method. The leaves can be collected only in early morning and only by hand. Always only the top of the leaves can be plucked. The tea collection requires great expertise and careful work. Just like the processing. The leaves are delivered in sacks to the processing factory, and there they're sent to the drying room on a carrying line. There, the tea is poured on gratings and wilted with huge ventilators. The leaf stalks, fibers, and possible pollutants are removed by a filtering method. And then, adhering to strict hygienic rules, the leaves are fermented. A part of the teas are put into circulation without being flavored. However, on foreign markets, flavored types are more popular. There are types flavored with lemon, orange, cocoa, cinnamon, wild fruits, exotic fruits, and bergamot. The most popular among the locals is the vanilla-flavored one. Tea can be packed in bags of 200 grams, but more are produced of the filter kind, which for some extra charge is also sold with a package with aroma seal. On the Bois Cherie plantation, the different kinds also have names, so we can find teas called Blue Penny, Corsairs, or Paul Virginie. A pleasant tea house has been established on top of the hill, from where not only the plantation can be seen, but also the whole island, and here visitors can taste the various kinds before purchasing any of them. Of course, tea cakes are also offered with the tea, and we can also choose from the types of sugar of Mauritius. In the small factory museum, we can see many interesting things, from the model of clippers carrying tea to unused old machines. Our path leads from here to the most southerly point of the island. La Vanille Crocodile Park was opened in 1985 just next to Riviera d'Anguille. How reptiles come into connection with the fragrant spice? Well, before they took possession of the area, there were vanilla plantations all over. The name originates from that fact, though it's a bit deceiving as it's a zoo where only one of the attractions are the crocodiles. As all over the island, also here there are giant turtles resting under the shade of the trees, in no hurry to welcome the visitors. We can touch them, or we can take a photo with them. We don't have to send a complimentary copy to them. The smallest children can even sit on the back of the turtles, but be aware of the animal's load capacity. The turtles' grandparents were brought here around 1880 from Aldabra on Charles Darwin's recommendation. About 500 of them are walking freely around the 1-hectare area. Fortunately, this is not the case with the crocodiles. The brochures of L'Avenue Park advertise proudly that here everything is like it used to be on the ancient Mauritius. Don't believe everything, because just as some of the plants, also some of the animals have been brought to settle here during the last few centuries. The park looks like a real tropical forest with babbling streams, palms, lianas, bamboos, orchids, and a multitude of birds living in the trees. Australian zoologist Owen Griffith and his wife came up with a method to breed Nile crocodiles on the territory of the ruined plantation. They imported the crocodiles from Madagascar, and today there are almost 2,000 of them waiting for the visitors and the feeding, especially the latter. The staff carefully pays attention that every animal gets enough to eat. In the local restaurant, we can taste crocodile meat, and the ladies can take them home in the form of a handbag. Several other types of animals also live in the park: chameleons, geckos, Madagascar huge lizards, caimans, and frogs. Besides reptiles, we can see wild boars, goats, rabbits, mongooses, hedgehogs, and monkeys here. Baby crocodiles live in terrariums, separated according to age. The naughty white-headed monkeys make everyone laugh. Perhaps the most unique resident of the park is the fruit-eating golden bat. Hanging upside down, the small animal most closely resembles a golden-furred stuffed teddy bear, which is learning hang gliding. In the insect house, besides the live spiders, we can see 20,000 mounted butterflies and insects, the result of Mr. Jacques Siedlecki's 30-year collection work. In the basins of the park, a lot of goldfish gape at the visitors. However, these don't fulfill any wishes. In addition to the animals, it's also worth examining the rich flora of the park. Blue Bay and the nearby lagoon Pointe d'Esne are the most beautiful parts of the southeastern coast. The local tourist offices offer a lot of boat activities for tourists. Of these, the catamaran tours are the most interesting, and they depart almost every day. On the west side, you can also see dolphins, while on the north, diving among nearby islands and reefs is possible. Departing from Mahébourg, we can discover the eastern side, and in the meantime, bathe in attractive protected bays. The staff of the ship spoils passengers with a barbecue lunch and salad buffet, and the passengers will probably be one unforgettable adventure richer. Lately, sea fishing is also among the activities for those who have this as a hobby. We can depart from Blue Bay to reach the island Île aux Aigrettes. The island of herons is a small field 1 kilometer away from Mahébourg. Before visiting the game reserve of 25 hectares, it's advisable to inquire in the travel agencies, as visitors can enter only after preliminary notice. At a small exhibition in the visitor center, we can see the bones and, based on them, reproductions of the dodo bird that died out in the 17th century. The island is operated by the Mauritius Wildlife Foundation, and according to their own words, they intend it to be a kind of Noah's Ark. For those who are more thoroughly interested in the fauna of the island, the game reserves, or the work of the Wildlife Foundation, we warmly recommend the book entitled Golden Bats, Pink Pigeons by English naturalist Gerald Durrell, in which we find more about the dodo bird and the still existing endangered species. Durrell wrote such famous books as Rosie is My Relative, My Family and Other Animals, or Birds, Beasts and Relatives, and led 2 expeditions to Mauritius and Rodriguez as early as the early 70s. The main concern of the expeditions was the rescue of the large-sized pink pigeons and other native species living only here. As a result, even today, we can encounter these rare creatures on the Île aux Aigrettes. In the Second World War, the island was an English military base, proven by the anti-aircraft cannon left here as a memory. We can meet live geckos, chameleons, and unusual birds. The real experience is tracking them and spying on them, because here they're in their natural habitat and not huddling closed up in cages. Perhaps the tourist's unpracticed eye couldn't even recognize them if the enthusiastic tour guide didn't point them out. His sharp eyes can recognize not only the reptiles hidden in the green foliage, but he can even entice some birds with his whistle. Here, some 40 kinds of the plants and trees are grown that used to be native on the main island, but have already become extinct there. The foundation trusts that they will manage to respread the saplings. Among them is a kind of ebony, the strangely named rat tree, the hornbeam, and the ox tree. The Indian Sea is smiling, blueness which nothing disturbs. On its surface, the wind causes no waves, only the boat's propeller causes ripples. This was written by Rudyard Kipling, the big lover of India and the Indian Ocean. However, Mauritius has its own local poet as well, Robert Edward Hort, whose anthologies are available both in English and French. Domaine de Chasseur is tucked away among the 300-meter hills of the east coast. The construction is a guest house, restaurant, and entertainment center all in one. Its owner is an English gentleman who came here to hunt decades ago. The restaurant is not easily approachable without the help of the owner. Cars must be left in the lower parking lot, from where four-wheel drive jeeps take us up on the steep dirt roads. Four-wheelers can also be rented to whiz on the hills. There's also a helicopter landing field on the plateau in front of the restaurant, which allows the guests of the luxury hotels to fly here. In addition, pleasure flights depart from here, during which we can admire the pearl of the Indian Ocean from a different aspect. The specialties of the restaurant are game dishes. As a starter, hearts of palm salad or crabs are recommended. Soup can be made of parsnips or other vegetables, while the roasts are usually deer, antelope, or wild boar. On the nature reserve area of 900 hectares, 10 thatched roof barracks are at the guest's disposal in case they would like to spend the night here. The terrace with a brilliant view extending above the valley is an ideal place to say goodbye to this paradise on earth while partaking of a pleasant dinner.